Joining us now on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. Jeff, how's it going?
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing?
We are good. You're here with me, Curtis Rogers, and also ESPN's Brady Henderson, and we have a lot of questions about the newest Seahawk, and I am going to start with just him as a person. We have a lot to get into with how he plays and what he looked like at the Senior Bowl and all that practice and good stuff. But the Seahawks have had a couple weeks now, Jeff. I don't know how close you've been watching it, of talking about we want people who want to be here and maybe like resetting the culture just a little bit. Tell us what you know about Grey Zabel, the person.
Okay, well, he's one of these farm kids, guys, and North Dakota State's had a history of taking these guys who are 6'6", 240, 250, and developing them into, NFL guys. I mean, he's the sixth straight left tackle from North Dakota State who has been drafted going back to 2014 and Billy Turner. And most of those guys are small-town farm kids. I mean, they're literally from these spots in the middle of nowhere, although Pierre is a capital. It's a pretty small town. Grew up a farm kid, and the story of these guys when they come to fall camp as freshmen, these farm kids, like practice starts at say 7 a.m. or whatever, and these guys, it's like, well, that's sleeping in for us. I mean, we're usually up at 5 and milking cows or whatever, and so that's kind of the mindset that Gray came from. It's a mindset that Cordell Volson from Balfour, North Dakota, he's with the Bengals. Cody Mauch 2 years ago, second round at Tampa Bay. He's from a farm. And so this is no different. It's a tough mindset. These are just tough kids, and that's what you're going to get.
Jeff, you mentioned just kind of the run that North Dakota State has been on in producing offensive linemen. Where do you rank Grey Zabel in terms of his impact on the Bison and just among that group? Because you mentioned there have been a lot of guys taken in the first couple of days of the draft, and it seems like they've got a really good thing going there.
Yeah, good question. All these guys never really have immediate impact. And like I said, they'll take them at 6'6", 240, 250 and develop them. I think that's kind of the problem with FBS these days is there's just no patience anymore. The Washingtons and the Big Tens of the world, they want guys 6'5", 295 out of high school, where these smaller schools like FCS schools will take a good athlete like Grey Zabel and say he's 250, and 3 years later now he's 300, and now he's coming to you guys at 6'6", 315. They develop them, and it's a developmental program, and I just don't see that in the big boys anymore. Like I said, I just don't think the patience is there. If you're there for a year or two at Washington and you don't make the grade, then you hit the portal and they just kind of fizzle. Where smaller schools, they hang around. And they hang around until they make something of themselves.
Hey, Jeff, Brady Henderson here from ESPN. Thanks for joining us. Grey Zabel told us on a conference call last night that he turned down some pretty lucrative offers from bigger schools, from bigger conferences in order to stay put at North Dakota State. What can you tell us about that decision, and how much was that maybe a concern there that you would lose or that they would lose Zabel to kind of what we see in college football today?
Yeah, big time. I think it was around 500,000, 600,000, 700,000, somewhere in that range. NDSU has a collective too. It's not nearly that, so it's not like he didn't get anything by staying. I think it was a combination. His family likes him around here. I talked to his high school coach yesterday, and he goes, he just wanted to finish what he started. And I don't know if you see that very often anymore. And going forward with the portal, where so many FCS kids are taking that and running, maybe it's going to be a little more rare, but I think that just sort of goes back, guys, to that farm mentality, if you will, where he started it, he wants to finish it, and money isn't the most important. His brother is a freshman tight end at NDSU this year, so I think he wanted to stay and play with his younger brother. Family first, and that's why he wasn't in Green Bay last night. I mean, he wanted to hang around and hang with his family and friends in the basement of his house for the draft. And I think, like he told Seattle Times, have a couple bush lights afterward.
Jeff, my ears just perked up when you threw that number out there. Did you say that you think your understanding is he turned down, what was it?
Greater than six figure?
$700,000 in terms of Wow. And if you don't know the exact number, I understand, but can you give us a sense of what kind of money you think he was making at North Dakota State?
We don't know. I mean, that collective has been pretty secretive and private, and that's the rumor, and the guess is mid six figures. I think that's pretty accurate. And he turned that down. What's he make at NDSU? I don't know. 50, 100? We don't know. We'd love to know, but we don't know. And like I said, I guess money isn't everything to everybody. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, go figure. That's a wild thought. And honestly, I would think that it seemed like he is a person. The reason my first question for you was about his personality is it sure seems like that resonated with John Schneider. Brady, I know you were at the press conference with John after Zabel was drafted, and it seems like he just personally liked him, like was really impressed by him as a person, and that went a long way. So, Jeff, I'd assume that he could pick up on that. You've covered some pretty special athletes, and I know this is the first one that we get to ask you about who became a Seahawk, but there have been other guys, obviously, that I'm sure you've covered during their time in the NFL as well as they transition from NDSU. How early have you kind of realized that some of these guys have it? Like, how early with Grey Zabel did you think, like, oh, I'm covering an NFL talent?
Yeah, I would say, in 2021, the Bison football offensive line had 7 guys, obviously 5 starters, 2 backups. All 7 have been in the NFL or were in the NFL. I think 5 or 6 are still there. 1 guy's in the UFL. And for a small school like that to have 7 guys on one team with NFL caliber is, I think, pretty remarkable. Grey was a backup on that team. And so he would have been, a redshirt freshman. Came on in 2022, I think, is when you first start to see, okay, here's a pretty good guy. But, Jalen Sundell, your guy, was kind of the guy back then. And so everybody was talking about Sundell, and Grey Zabel was maybe the next guy in line. Well, Sundell leaves, the Seahawks sign him, and he sticks with the Hawks. And now Grey becomes the guy. He becomes a left tackle. And, it's just every year is just a little better. And this year was really good.
What were the conversations around Zabel's pro potential prior to his Senior Bowl performance? Because he really stole the show in Mobile. What were you guys talking about with him maybe during the season? Was it like, oh, this guy could potentially play his way into the first round, or was it just that Senior Bowl performance that really put him on the radar?
Yeah, during the year, we always thought of him as maybe a second or third rounder, and I think he thought himself as a second or third rounder. But I think, getting to that Senior Bowl workout and going against guys from the FBS, and he really, he's a practice player of the week, and I think there it probably hit him that, well, I'm just as good as these guys, if not better. So I would say, the first round thoughts maybe started to hit around the Senior Bowl, and then at the Combine, he rips off the 3rd highest vertical jump in offensive lineman Combine history at 36.5, and go, wow, okay, pretty good athlete. And so, again, that was another step. But I would say the Senior Bowl is probably where he went from second to first.
NFL teams will tell you that when they are evaluating prospects from non-Power 5 schools, that they want to see those guys dominate against that level of competition to think that they've got a real shot of being really good NFL players. Did you see dominance on the field with Grey Zabel?
Yeah, and in fact, I've seen dominance, but I've seen a real athletic guy. And I'll give you a story. My son was a baseball player at Fargo North, and we were down in South Dakota playing in a tournament, a high school tournament, and we're playing Pierre, where Gray's from. And we get there, and I look out at this Pierre team, and, like, the center fielder, it's like the biggest center fielder I've ever seen. I'm like, who is this guy? And I turn a couple of parents, I go, is everybody else just tiny, or is that guy just huge?
You're like, what coach is out here playing for one of these kids?
Yeah, so Grey Zabel is a center fielder. He's actually a Division I baseball prospect. Seemed like more of a baseball player to me at the time, even though, football later became his thing. But that's the kind of athlete he is, where he was a center fielder at his size. He was probably only 240 then, 250, but still 6'6". But that size, he was a center fielder, and I don't think he's lost athletic ability. I think you got a offensive lineman that could probably still play center field today.
Hey, while we still got you for a couple more minutes here, and I'm sure we'll have more questions about Zabel, I actually wanted to ask you about a topic that I think is going to come up plenty tonight in the draft and obviously tomorrow and into day 3, which is just about the transfer portal and about the impact of changes in the college football landscape in general. Right? Like, I already know that John Schneider is going to be asked about, hey, do you notice prospects are kind of different now that they have NIL deals? Do you notice that, is a guy entering the transfer portal too many times a knock on him? Like, these are questions that they weren't asking GMs, a couple years ago. As someone who's covering a college beat, right, and kind of sees both sides of this, what's been your take on the change in the landscape?
Well, God, isn't it striking? I just,
it's crazy.
Yeah, the entitlement, I guess. I think maybe we're seeing more in athletes and what do you have for me? What's in it for me? What kind of money do you have for me? I think that's where Gray maybe separated himself. Kudos to Schneider for doing that. I just think, there still is a culture element in football. You got 50, 60, 70 guys, and you still need that culture element. The good teams have it. They get along. They're still in it for the team and not so much themselves. I don't care what level. I think, you look at World Series champs, Super Bowl champs, they all say the same thing. We love each other, blah, blah, blah. And I think maybe that the Seattle brass and administration is maybe getting a grasp on that is true. There are guys coming in. And is it about the team or is it about them? I think those are great questions to ask, and you're probably going to see more of that.
Yeah.
Jeff, one thing that I've recognized about the North Dakota State football program is just the consistent success that it's had. And it's been had through multiple head coaches. Normally when you see as much head coaching turnover as you do with these programs, the wins and losses don't come as easily as they used to, but that has not been the case. What's the magic potion that's going on in Fargo? Because it feels like dating back, I'm just looking at the win percentage of every single head coach that's been there dating back to like the 50s. It's guys that are running up, 700, 800, 650.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's ridiculous the amount of winning that program has been doing for as long as they have.
Yeah, well, it's easy. In 2009, they were 3-8, and the head coach at the time, Craig Bull, just said, you know what? And that was a rare losing season for this program. And he said it's recruiting. And let's forget about the stars, the recruiting stars. When you go into a high school and recruit a kid, I don't want you to talk to the head coach per se. Go to the janitor, go to the secretary, go to a teacher and say, what's this kid like? Because every coach will go, yeah, he's great. Oh, yeah, because they all want him to go Division I. But what is the story on these guys? Is he getting in trouble? Is he going in the office? Is he a pain in the rear? And so they stopped talking, specifically to the coach and just told your assistants, no, I want you to talk to, other students or whatever. What's this guy really like? And so they started recruiting more of the person and not worry so much about the ability or the stars or the recruiting attention or the huddle tapes or whatever. Yeah, they're good players, but they have rejected good players with questionable character, and 10 national titles later, here we are.
Hey, Jeff, I want to ask you about Jalen Sundell. We've mentioned him briefly during the conversation, but
good kid, great guy.
Yeah, the word on him was that if not maybe for some injury situations, that he would have gotten drafted. What can you tell us about the kind of player he was for that program?
Yeah, he's a center. Again, he was like Gray, played all across the line, and I think NFL guys love that flexibility and versatility. In high school, guys, in his division in Missouri, he was the offensive player of the year as an offensive lineman, which kind of seems bizarre. How many old linemen are offensive players of the year? But again, great athlete, athletic ability. His sister is a really good Division I basketball player at Kansas State. Athletic family, great family. In much the same respect as Gray. Again, kind of from a smaller town, maybe you know, a little chip there on his shoulder. But it was great to see him stick. And again, he was one of those offensive linemen that just developed, and overcame a couple injuries, but hung in there.
He is North Dakota State beat writer Jeff Kolpack of the Forum, kind enough to join us. I'm going to retweet an article that we referenced a ton in this interview, and it's from last season, but it's where Jeff writes about Grey turning down some of those offers and some of his comments about that. It's a great read, and Jeff's got obviously other great stuff. If you guys are looking to do your Grey Zabel research, go to inforum, all one word.com. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to see you guys.